Hello everybody, this is the first of, I guess, what will be a bi-monthly thing happening with MW5 and its development. Obviously, some of you may know that if you pre-order one of the online community versions that are currently up on the MWO website for MechWarrior 5, you get access to their Discord channel. And we've been having a look at them, and the first one happened today on Wednesday, 16th of January. They've been quite smart. They've split it into two, so there's one at 6 PM UTC for us filthy Europeans and anyone else in the same kind of time zone, like in South Africa, that kind of place. And then there's a second one that's happening much later on for North American audiences and people who are more in line with their time zone. So basically, I'll be most of the time covering the 6 PM one, and this is going to be the case. So I'll try and do some of the others in the next couple of months, hopefully. I'll be able to catch both of them, see if there are any different questions. But they last about an hour, and the basic setup is that there's a channel that you ask questions in, and then there's you sit in a voice channel that you are muted in, but you can hear Russ and any of the other developers as they chat about things and answer the questions. So I did record it, and for this first one, I'm just giving you a summary, but let me know in the comments if you just want me in the future for the next one just to post up the whole thing unedited. Because I can do that, I just don't know how entertaining it, because it's literally, you'll literally just be looking at a Discord screen with people's questions scrolling up and down the image there, and that's it. There won't be like any sort of gameplay footage or anything. This one will have the trailer footage going on in the background, so at least there's something interesting happening on screen. But yeah, let me know if you want to have just the raw stuff. So with that, let's get to the first question, which is, will there be recoil? Short answer is yes. Slightly longer answer is recoil will be based on weapon size. So you can imagine an AC-20 and AC-10 is going to have more recoil than an AC-2, or obviously things like a machine gun. But apparently they have a generic system, and that system will allow them to tweak those values as it goes along. And basically that was that question. There was a follow-up as to whether this would have an effect on your aim, and they didn't really seem like they'd made a decision on that. So it didn't sound like they wanted to answer that question. They just said we'll have a look at it. So yeah, first question down: recoil, yes. Whether it'll actually have that big an impact, we don't know. Okay, second question that comes up: will there be microtransactions? Good news on that. No, there are 0 microtransactions going to be in the game. As far as any post-release DLC is concerned, it's basically going to be down to how successful the game is and whether they still have the license within that time frame, because we know that their license comes up for review sometime, I think, 2020, and with this game coming out at the end of 2019, it's going to depend whether Microsoft decide to extend that license agreement with them or not. If they do, Russ did say that it would possibly be things like major DLC expansions, right down to also just being minor things like skin packs for your mechs, essentially. But he made an effort to point out that they are not doing any kind of post-release content yet. It's entirely focused on the main product. So question number 3 goes into salvage. How's that going to work? It's a big part of any kind of MechWarrior mercenary-based game anyway. There was a few hints about different systems that are going to be in play. One of these was mention of something called negotiation points, which seems to suggest that as your reputation increases as a merc company, you will have access to more of these points, and using those points will guarantee you maybe a higher payout or more salvage rights, and maybe other things. It sounds like a system that they're not really ready to talk about yet, and thus they haven't really got much to say. On that point, it's not going to work like HBS's Battletech with there's just parts, and if you get 3 parts, you get the mech, or if you get 5 parts, it's literally going to be a case of rarity. So apparently if you down a mech, headshot or not, there's always the chance that that mech will be on the salvage table at the end, and if you've negotiated enough points, you might be able to take it. So a short answer to it really is that I don't think the salvage system has been completely worked out. There was also the caveat that everything that they're discussing with regards to salvage, and most of these questions, to be honest, are down to it could change, liable to change at any time. So yeah, salvage is going to work with a little... it sounds interesting, the negotiation points, but until we get some kind of footage or maybe some kind of write-up about how this all works. It's anyone's guess, really. But yeah, there's potential there to have some interesting little back and forth maybe with your employers. Also, a note for anybody who's interested in the idea of how mods are going to work in MechWarrior 5. This one, they didn't cover it. Specifically, they want to have a future AMA session that is going to be just for the modders, that they can ask all their questions about just how malleable is the game going to be, whether it comes down to being able to simply add new skins or sound effects, that kind of thing, to full-blown player-made expansions like entire new mechs and vehicles and cityscapes and all that crap. So we'll find that out at a later date. Question 4. Will we be seeing mechs that aren't currently in MechWarrior Online? Examples being some of the Innisphere mediums like Clint, Hermes 2, Dervish, and Whitworths, that kind of thing. Short answer, no. Basically, they're just going to use the rather large list of Innisphere mechs that they currently have in MechWarrior Online, and they're the ones that are going to be in the game. Now, going back to the previous question that was about DLC packs, maybe we'll see them then. But as it stands, if there's a mech that isn't an MWO, it's not going to be in MechWarrior 5, unfortunately. Next point that came up is EFIGs, also known as English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish. They are going to be doing localization for EFIGs. Anything else outside of that, they couldn't really confirm. One person asked about Japanese, he wasn't sure. I guess we can assume that localization will go beyond EFIGs, at least to the point of having things like Russian, probably Polish, and a few other East European countries. I wouldn't be surprised if a few of the Far Eastern countries get in there as well, such as Japan, but there's no confirmation exactly what languages are going to be supported. Next part of the questions that came up was to do with scaling, and whether only the mechs had actually been tweaked from MWO's values. No, not really. Both Alex and Russ were pretty certain that they hadn't really made any real changes, and that it might have actually been more of a visual trick than the fact that they'd actually scaled some of the buildings and the such to be more on par with what you'd expect from the Battletech universe, where, well, most of the time battle mechs really aren't as big as skyscrapers, they're actually a lot smaller. So yeah, it might just look to some people like that was the case. So yeah, no scaling changes there. So after that, difficulty, and will there be any sliders? Essentially, no. Difficulty is apparently going to use some kind of learning system, skill progression system, something along those lines. Basically, for the player, that's not really an issue, but for your AI, who you may have with you as part of your lance, apparently the more they use a certain mech and a certain configuration of that mech, the better they'll become with it. And this is something that they seem pretty happy with, though they didn't rule out the idea of having a difficulty setting. Enemies will apparently work on their own difficulty sliders and the such, I guess, for the type of missions you might be doing or what point in the campaign you're in. It was a bit uncertain. I don't think they've really, again, fleshed this out. I'm a little dubious of a system, personally, of, oh, it's a learning system. The more you put friendly AI in this, the better they get. I mean, unless it's just some kind of behind-the-scenes flat uptick of every time it fires a medium laser, it gets a slightly better, skill at firing the medium laser to the point where it hits a maximum and that's as accurate as it's ever going to get. I'm not really sure. It seems a bit unusual. The only thing they did say was that modders will have access to the blueprints of this system and they'll be able to tweak it however they feel. Next one that came up was colorblind support. Do they have any front-end systems for that yet? No, but they are looking at it. Essentially, I would be surprised if they didn't have a colorblind option. It should be default in any game these days, and it should give players the opportunity or the ability to modify the colors so they can actually see what the hell is going on with the UI, especially in a game that relies on a paper doll system to show what state your mech is in. So, yeah, apparently the blue and green, I don't really know anything about. Obviously, colorblind, I don't suffer it. I don't know anyone who suffers colorblindness, so I don't really know what the difficulties are there, but I would say it's a safe bet that there will be some option in there in the future. If they don't, well, it's their own damn fault there. Another interesting question that came up was regards to collisions. If you remember seeing the demo footage from last year's MechCon, you'll know that there were numerous buildings that the players and the AI would just smashing through, and there was no sense of inertia being lost or the fact that these were huge buildings that they were tearing through. Apparently that was a system that they have finished, or they've got a lot of the way done, and it will be implemented into the release. It will probably be there for the beta, but basically every object that can be crushed or run through by a mech or a vehicle has basically a weight assigned to it, and the more that value is, the higher it is, the more your mech will be slowed down. So basically you can't run through a ton of skyscrapers and keep going at full speed. You will eventually get slowed down, maybe to the point where you stop, depending on how fast your mech is or how heavy your mech is. Next question that came up, ghost heat or any kind of heat penalties? No, because they're not tweaking the game for a PvP environment, it's just there for fighting the AI. So yeah, you don't have to worry about if you boat too many of a weapon, are you going to get some kind of heat penalty? No. Rust does emphasise a lot that they want this one to be about fun, which I can make a cynical joke to say, like, so MechWarrior Online isn't about fun. But yeah, MechWarrior 5 is more about run and gun, blow the shit out of PvE targets, bring your friends and shoot more of them, and have a gay old time, as they say in the Flintstones intro. So yeah, no ghost heat, which is a good thing, but also a bit of a no-brainer. Why would they need it? So interesting note here. Russ has this unspoken rule that if he skips a question, it's because it's one he doesn't want to answer. Unfortunately, he didn't tell the other staff this. Tina and someone else fell afoul of this, where they point out to him, oh, there's a question that you didn't cover there, and Russ pretty much says, and I have the footage, says, like, if I skip a question, it's because I don't want to answer it, which is, it's kind of funny. But once it's brought up to him, he's going to answer it now, because it's been brought up, and this one was about VR, and will there be any plans for it at launch? Essentially, no. I agree with them on this. I know VR is a thing for some people, but let's face it, it's not as mainstream as just your regular PC gaming. So I would personally not want to see resources diverted from MechWarrior 5 to make a VR version of it, or any kind of VR implementation. I just don't see the point at this stage. It's a game that Russ already states that he needs it to be successful for them to even consider doing DLC. The last thing we want is VR sucking away resources for that. I'm sorry. If you can afford VR, setups, and you're happy gaming with VR, more power to you. But a majority of us out there, we just don't have the cash to waste on VR. And frankly, I don't want VR to be a major focus for these things. I'd rather them getting a game out and then thinking about VR as an after addition, rather than part of the key experience. Next question that came up was, would we ever see Super Heavy Mechs in this or MechWarrior 5? MechWarrior Online or MechWarrior 5? Well, no, is the answer on that one. In MechWarrior 5, definitely not. With the timescale being 3015 to 3049, no. Even if there's a one-off prototype for a Super Heavy, you're just not going to see it. And if you want to see Super Heavies, you've got to go way beyond the 3060s before you get anything close to that. In MechWarrior Online, I just don't see how you'd even incorporate a Super Heavy without it being woefully either broken, underpowered compared to other mechs, or just not worth the time and effort that's put in. It's kind of a wasted question, to be honest. Next question that came up was any kind of role-playing elements in the game. Pretty much no, not in any kind of traditional sense, in any form outside of the roleplay you may have in your head and the reason you pick a certain contract or who you fight for. But no, the campaign is a linear campaign that sounds like it's going to be kind of similar to HBS Battletech, where there's just going to be this campaign happens over here, and when you're ready to do those missions, you do them. And then on the other side of it, you've just got the proc gen contracts that you can take as many as you want for as long as you want, and grind C-bills and mechs, and then go do the story campaign. So yeah, there's no kind of leveling up, there's no kind of choose your own adventure style thing, there's no kind of romancing options or getting to know certain NPCs by the sounds of it. It's literally just going to be kind of like mission, proc gen stuff, have fun, blow shit up. Okay, so the next question goes into, will we see the clans by the end of Product Life? Being that the story ends in 3049, maybe very late 3049, will there be any kind of clan interaction at all? Russ is a little bit coy about this, seems to suggest that there are plans for it. He does mention that if the game's a success, you might see the clans as a DLC thing. As far as I know, though, I do remember an IGN article where they were interviewed about how the campaign will progress, and I'm pretty sure they mentioned that it will go right up to the point of the clan invasion, like the very beginning of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if the post-game or end-game content of MechWarrior 5 is contracts against clans, or really rare ones fighting against clans where you get a really small chance of being able to maybe nab yourself some clan tech. That's what it sounded like. Whether they've backtracked on that since, I don't know, but considering they have a lot of clan chassis that they can draw from now for the game, it seems like a no-brainer to just add them anyway. Plus, there's plenty of people out there who buy these games to play as the clans. If you take the clans out, you're going to miss sales. So I think they are going to be in there. I would bet money on that, to be honest. Okay, then we get to my first question. Yeah, I actually managed to get in there. My question was, how much of the Innisphere or Periphery will we be able to traverse during the campaign? Russ handed this one over to Alex, who said that it's not going to be the full 3,000 plus systems, but you will be able to travel from one side to the other. So presumably you'll also be able to go from top to bottom, and even some of the Periphery will be in there. So it sounds like there's going to be a hell of a lot to move around. So if there's a particular faction that you were a fan of, then you can just sit there and play all of your Merc contracts over there and fight for those guys if you want. If you want to be a Fed Rat or a Combine Scumbag or a Lyran Jesse, or if you want to be one of those Purple Bird lovers, or if you want to be a Lowist, you can. Of course, I'm hoping the Turians will be there, because that's where I'll be spending a lot of my time. Okay, the first major question I think is going to maybe turn some people on or off for the game. Mech customization, and just how in-depth is this going to be. Now, for those players who have only been weaned on the titty of MechWarrior Online's Mech Lab and the plethora of options, yeah, you're not going to have that. MechWarrior 5 is going to strictly have a very similar system to HBS Battletech. You can't mess with the engine. You can't just wholesale redesign an existing mech and make a completely new variant out of it, or a later variant, so you don't have to buy that other one. If you can do field refits, you can maybe switch out a weapon that you lost and put in a different weapon, but you can't just wholesale make it into an entirely different variant using a base chassis. So this means you can't put ferrofibrous on it if it doesn't come with ferrofibrous, and you can't change the structure to endosteel if it doesn't have endosteel, that kind of thing. This is Russ's words, not mine. You can do things like remove a weapon if it's something that you don't want and you want more armor. So you can up armor a mech by removing equipment, and you can probably get more ammunition and stuff in there like that. But basically they want the idea of being that as you progress through the game and new variants come about, because maybe in 3026 there's a new variant of this mech, then you'll find it in a mission and you might get it as salvage, and the idea is that, hey, I've got this new variant that might be more advanced or more suited to what I want to use for these types of missions. So then you've got that, and the marketplace will apparently have some of these new variants as they come about, so they want this more dynamic system to come in, rather than it just being this system of just having 4 mechs and you just constantly redesign them to be that as you get the tech. So if you were looking for something to be more like MechWarrior Online, it's not going to happen. Another element that they are going to try and sidestep some of the modification issues that you might be used to in MechWarrior Online but won't be available in MechWarrior 5 is specifically going to be manufacturers of different weapons. And again, this is drawing from probably one of the other well-received aspects of HBS Battletech, is that if a manufacturer makes a specific type of AC5 that might have a totally different way of operating compared to a standard AC5. So for instance, it might have a better cooldown, it might fire multiple rapid fire shots instead of a single slug, it might have a different means of like different ammo types, or different, well, not ammo types, but the amount of ammunition you can get per ton, that kind of thing. They're looking at ways of making the different weapons from different manufacturers feel different. So you may have a particular brand of weaponry that you might always go to for your playstyle. This, I think, is to try and alleviate some of the issues of players not being able to basically swap out an engine and a mech and make it way faster than it ever should be, kind of thing. And it's like they're going to try and give you that kind of customization instead. A couple of smaller questions come up next. Will there be permanent damage to the maps? In the MechCon demo, they showed that the farm had crops that went on fire as the battle raged on, but then they sort of went back to normal. Apparently they do have a system where there will be a permanent damage applied to different locations, so if you create a crater in the ground, it will be there when you go back to that location. If you do during the mission, I assume this isn't held over. The other one was about basically engine explosions, a la the Stackpole effect. They're not really confirmed or deny it, but they are possibly looking into it being some kind of rare event, something that might happen, but they're not looking at it being something that regularly happens. So the next question that comes up, infantry, and will we be able to burn them and stomp them into jelly? The question was answered at first yes, but then it kind of went down to if we have the resources and we get all the other top priority stuff done. I think I'm going to say infantry will probably not happen, at least not at launch. I think it's going to be more like infantry will get in there if they can optimize the engine enough, and then you might be able to maybe see some squads with some man-pack PPCs or SRMs firing at you kind of thing, or you'll be able to like run over and burn them, that kind of thing. But at the moment, I wouldn't hold my breath for them. But it's encouraging that they talked about them in a positive sense, in the fact that if they can, they will. So that's good news. Going back to the whole will there, won't there be a DLC thing, one of the questions came up, like, in terms of DLC, will we have an issue with gated content where the host owns it, but the 2 or 3 friends don't own it? Will that stop them from joining? If there's a mission pack, will you be able to invite your friends to play the mission pack with you, or do they all have to own the mission pack? Russ basically said that some stuff will be freebie DLC, which seems to now confirm there would be some kind of free editions as patches come out. But at the same time, I think it's also down in that big asterisk that's down there that says, like, if it's really successful, there will be extra shit. I think what you can take from this in regards to post-release content, or at least DLC, is that they are definitely in the grouping of, yes, we do want to do DLC, but really only if we sell a shitload of copies. Like, this is the thing that makes some players top lists of 2019, and IGN fucking blows them from dawn to dusk for previews and shit, and PC Gamer splashes them all over one of their issues, and you've got Eurogamer talking about them, and you've got fucking GameSpot talking about them, and Steam does a big promotion for them. If that happens, I think it'll be DLC at the wazoo. If not, I think what we get in the base package is what we're going to get, and I doubt we'll see anything else. It really is going to hinge on the fact of everyone has to buy this game. Another quick one that came up about Steam Workshop support for mods. Yes, because the game will be on Steam, so that's a pretty easy no-brainer question. I don't know why that one was brought up. The other one was, how will MechWarrior 5 interface MWO? The other answer to that one was fucking no, because they're 2 totally different projects, and thus there will be no crossover with the 2. So far. I mean, who knows? They might come up with something, but at the moment, no. Neither game. If you own an account MechWarrior Online, it has no impact on MechWarrior 5. Okay, one of the other hot topic issues is, can you play as a man or a woman, and will it have any kind of gender identity aspects to it? I think this is a weird question as well, to be honest. You're basically going to be playing the mech outside of walking around, and maybe you pick, I'm going to go in the Thunderbolt. I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference. By the sounds of it, your character isn't going to be talking, and most of the time, I think when you see your co-op pilot mates, they're probably just going to be, they'll have a helmet on and thick pilot suit, so I don't think you'll actually be able to make out whether they're male or female, and I doubt there'll be any kind of character create in the game anyway. I mean, let's face it, it's a game about mechs. It's not Mass Effect. I'm not making a female shepherd or a male shepherd and making this mech my favorite one on the Citadel. This is one where I'm just going to be, like, my name's Doug McCracken, fucking MechWarrior ace extraordinaire, and I'm going to blow the shit out of that guy over there, not in a gay way, and then I'm going to, shoot the shit out of this person over here. It doesn't really matter. It's not something that they have said they've looked at or worked on, and I think it's still in the air whether they are going to allow you. I am going to hedge my bets at the moment that, yeah, you probably will be able to pick generic man or generic woman, and then you'll be able to name generic man or woman and then name your merc company. But as far as gender identity goes, I mean, unless there's some kind of romance subplot in there, I don't really think that's an issue. I don't think it's going to come up whether your character's gay, straight, bi, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The next question that came up was plans for endgame content. I talked about this a little earlier myself, but apparently there is stuff that goes on beyond the story, which seems to be another suggestion that post 3049, the clans arrive and you have to maybe help defend those sectors against clan invasion. I think at this point it's going to be there's going to be clans. It'll probably be the original mechs, the 3050 clan mechs, but they'll be there and they'll be attacking and you'll have to fight them. Maybe elementals, who knows? So I wouldn't be surprised. The other really big piece of news, though, that comes out of this question, because there was another part of, will there be like a survival mode against wave of mechs and post, like, very difficult post-campaign missions for those merc companies that have tons of stuff. But Russ did confirm instant action. which if you played any of the older MechWarrior titles, this was basically a mode where you just picked your mechs, picked your enemy mechs, and you got dumped into an arena that you picked, and you just had a fight. And apparently you'll be able to pick the different mission types to play. So I guess there must be like defense missions, attack missions, escort missions, those kind of generic kind of things, and you'll be able to play them with friends, so you can invite your mates, and you can run and fight and play those missions against all kinds of different difficulties of enemies that I guess you can set. Maybe there'll be a random option, I don't know. But yeah, that was good news, because that's going to add a lot of playtime to the game post campaign there, and yeah, giving people like me, it'll give me the ability to do hopefully videos about some of the stuff that's in the game, being able to do stupid streams, that kind of thing, like, you know, setting us tasks of like 4 of us having to fight like all atlases or something crazy, you know, see how long we can live, that kind of stupidity. So yeah, it'd be good to see what they come up with. Next question that came up was, will MW5 be more sim and less shooter? And Russ answered this as more of it's down to a personal taste, whether if you find MechWarrior Online to be more arcadey shooter than sim, MechWarrior 5 is going to feel more like that to you. And so if you don't like the way MechWarrior Online currently plays with the movement and the firing mechanics, and obviously the way mechs react to hits, that kind of thing, you might not like MechWarrior 5 for that reason. I mean, I have to admit, from the MechCon footage, it looked a lot faster paced. It was less tactical in the sense of how you approach the mission. It was more just about kind of just getting in there and shooting stuff. And if the emphasis is on fun, then as a single player title, or at least a cooperative title, I don't see a problem with that personally. Obviously, it would be nice to have like a really heavy sim-like game of set in the BattleTech universe, but obviously that's a very different audience. I think it would probably turn off a majority, rather than bringing more people in. But I would still like to see both sides of it in the future, if there was ever any kind of type of MechWarrior sim game instead. Map question came up next. Will there be maps that are not procedurally generated for the main story, as in handcrafted missions with their own maps that have unique assets to them? And yes, there will be. Alongside, I believe they said that some story missions can also have proc gen elements to them, so probably the placement of certain objectives, maybe, that kind of thing. They do have numerous systems in there that will govern certain aspects of how they set up a mission and how they work. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's also good that this is going to also feature a lot of procedural generation tech. See how the maps work for that. I imagine that's going to create some really wacky maps at times that people are going to have a good old laugh with, and other times it's going to work out quite well. It'd be interesting to see what they do. So let me get back to the second question I managed to get in there. Oh yeah, I was a sneaky boy with this one. I asked, will major events occur during the course of the campaign? Events like the War of 3039, and will that give you any kind of mini narrative depending on what faction you're taking contracts for at the time? Russ essentially said that those events will be happening, and those, as you move around the map and time progresses, those kind of flashpoints will occur, those kind of conflicts will arise. Not all of them necessarily, so not every single little event that will be there, but major ones like that and the Fourth Succession one will probably occur, and you can take contracts for whatever side you feel, and those planets will be flipping ownership and that kind of thing, but you yourself are just mercenaries, so you don't have any major impact on the outcome of those events, nor do you... What I was trying to ask was like whether there was any kind of mini narrative set of missions in there that you may have been involved in because you picked, say, Kurita in the side of a conflict against Davian. Does that give you like the same missions but from an alternate perspective? I probably should have asked it as a more in-depth question, but at the time when you're trying to type in the Discord, there's questions flying up, so you got to try and get them in there because there's only a limited amount of time. But essentially, it doesn't sound like there's going to be any kind of mini narrative in there that you'll experience, but you will be able to fight for your favorite faction during those events. So it's good to know that they will be taking note of those as they happen, and then you'll be able to, I guess if you know by the date, you can sort of position yourself on, like, close to the border, so you know you'll be getting all the juiciest contracts and maybe the best salvage that could be coming up during those conflicts. So the next question seemed like a bit of a no-brainer one, but for anyone who does have this question, how will co-op work? It's pretty straightforward. Basically, if you load your game and you want one of your friends to join, and this runs through Steam, you just invite them, and you assign what mech that they pick whatever mech in your lance they're going to take, and you can do this during and before missions launch. I don't know why that was a necessary question, but it came out there. The one caveat is that, not surprisingly, they're not going to have dedicated servers for hosting your cooperative matches or cooperative games. So if you have a net connection that isn't too hot on, obviously, online stuff, inviting your friends and you're the host might not work out too well for you. So just keep that in mind. Though I'd be surprised if there are that many people who have those issues these days. Your system is essentially hosting the game, and you just invite your friends. So there you go. The next one came up is, will we have any kind of control over where we start the campaign? As in, can we start in Lyran space or Davian space or the periphery or something? And yes, we'll be able to do that. And I believe it will have some kind of randomness on what kind of equipment you start with as well. It won't always be the same mech, which is an uptick from what HPS Battletech does, where you just get the same lance every time you start a new career. So there's some replayability there in the sense of how difficult your start might be with your fresh sort of gameplay experience. Next question, will there be hero mechs? Probably. Didn't say yes, didn't say no. We have no idea. Another question was, will the difficulty scale as you add more human players to the match? I don't think Russ quite understood the question, because that's essentially what the user Viking Farmer was asking. He answered that, well, the game's designed to be completed by one person with AI partners, so the difficulty is always going to be set. I think he missed the idea that, well, if it's a mission's difficult with you on your own with 3 mates, that's fine, but does that mean it's going to stay that difficult when it's just you and friendly AI? Because the game does need to have some kind of scalable difficulty to it as you add more human players, because human players are always better than AI companions in that respect. So you always want some kind of challenge, or else 4 people are just going to ruffle stomp the whole game, and it's not going to be fun, especially when the limitations of the AI is discovered, and you can say, oh look, if we go here, that can't shoot you, and you can just shoot back and win this mission easily, kind of thing. So be interesting to see if they implement that. I hope they do. The infamous third-person camera, will it return? And the answer is yes, because there's no inherent advantages of having a third-person camera in a PvE environment compared to a PvP environment. So you'll be able to see your mech in all its glory from just over the shoulder and behind. You can watch its little tushy wiggle as it stomps around. Next question that came up was, would we see any mechs that don't use stock loadouts in the campaign? Coming across an enemy mech that, for instance, has a totally different setup, like a unique set of weaponry, even though it's on a chassis, like the example here was a Cicada. And they said they've got no comment on that yet. I think that means there'll probably be certain enemies in the story that will have unique variants, and you'll probably get them as salvage. So you can have, like, oh, I've got this Cicada that was from this guy, this pirate guy, or, you know, I've salvaged this Thunderbolt from this other Merc leader that I had to fight, kind of thing. So you might be able to get them as a kind of trophy mech, I guess, just to show your progression through the campaign. The next quickfire question after that was, how does time progress in the campaign? And it's pretty much, unlike HPS Battletech, where as long as you were hovering over a planet, you could do as many contracts as you wanted till they ran out, and then you moved and time progressed. This game is, if you're waiting for something to fix in the mech lab, that's time. If you're moving around picking up missions, that's time. If you're repairing stuff, that's time. If you're buying stuff, that's time. If you're doing a mission, that's still time passing. So the campaign will continue when you start from 15 right up to 3049. It's inexorable. There's no pausing of the progression of time within the campaign. The next question that came up, will there be nighttime missions? The answer to that was yes. And will mechs have floodlights like they did in previous games? And also some of the rather nice art that sometimes showed there. And they are looking at making floodlight systems work on the mechs. So yeah, that'll be a nice touch. Another part was how much work is going into the mercenary side of things. I'm guessing here this is the idea of expenditure, hiring and firing of pilots, negotiating contracts, moving around, hiring jump ships, maybe buying jump ships, buying new drop ships, buying maybe support assets, supplies, that kind of thing. The answer to that is they haven't shown us anything, so they're not going to talk about it yet. So but Russ did say that they are putting a lot of work into that side of things, so hopefully we'll see a bit more of that in the next few months. Next question came up is, will you be able to influence planetary control, i.e. will you be able to pick Davian and have it that they just completely roll over Kurita and take all their worlds by just constantly helping them on their worlds? No. In fact, your impact on the grand scale of things, the territory switching and that, will be zero. Being a small mercenary company means that you will just pick contracts and that's it. If a planet switches sides this year, that was the ownership of that year, and if it switches back the following year due to Davian counterattacking and taking it, then that's what happens. The only difference is, by the sounds of it, is the kind of content in the marketplace you'll find on those worlds, depending on who owns them at the time, and possibly the different types of contracts you might be able to get, different missions. Maybe you'll be able to get some kind of like raiding missions, that kind of thing. Who knows? That's more tied into the mercenary sim side of it. Will we be seeing PGI turning up with their compods at different conventions during the year? Possibly, but nothing until PAX East, Russ mentions. So if you're able to go to one of them, you might be able to try out MechWarrior 5. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yay! Woo! So I managed to get my third question in there, which was a change of a previous one, but it was, with tech levels changing as the game continues, will post-game allow players a better chance to acquire lost tech and possibly clan tech? The response to that was possibly, which seems to further cement that yes, the clans will probably be in there post-game, and that lost tech, I think that lost tech was a given at this point. The fact that they're skirting around it saying, oh, we don't know, it seems a bit silly, because by 3049, yeah, there was fucking lost tech everywhere. There was new variants coming out that was equipped with it, so I'd be surprised if you didn't have access to lost tech. But clan tech, on the other hand, yeah, the fact that there wasn't an outright no to clan tech seems to suggest that they're going to be there. When you finish the campaign, yeah, there's going to be the invasion. Question came up about the AI development, and was how far along was the AI developed for the demo that we saw at MechCon? Apparently that was their first iteration, which, yeah, stands to reason. It was pretty brain dead at times. Hopefully that will improve over the next 8 months or 9 months or so. It really does need to get better than what it was in the demo. It's there's only so long it's going to be fun shooting dummies before it just gets a tad boring. As a caveat to this, apparently the AI is now also at a point where it will shoot through destructible objects to hit you if it knows you're there, and they will try and keep their ranges to better use their heavier weaponry. The example he gave was a K2 catapult, keeping the optimum distance for its PPCs until you close the gap, and then switching to its secondary weapons. So yeah, if they can do that, that would be pretty good. Will you be liable for damage to civilian buildings and vehicles? Yes, apparently you will. So it looked great stomping through those buildings, but yeah, apparently for some contracts you will have to take into account the amount of damage that you're doing collaterally to the environment as you engage the enemy. So if you do find one of those contracts where it's like they've holed themselves up in an industrial complex and hey, we want that taken back, make sure you don't destroy every last part of the industrial complex, or it's going to cost you in your post-mission payout. Next one was about head hitboxes, and will they be compressed like they are in MechWarrior Online so it isn't so easy to headshot? Apparently no, there won't be anything in that regard. So if you get the headshot, you get the headshot. Doesn't necessarily mean you get the mech, remember. This isn't going to work like previous MechWarrior games, like MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. It's all going to come down to what kind of salvage you were allotted on your contract when you negotiated it, and, well, even then, even if you are allowed to take mechs as salvage, whether it turns up on the salvage table, because, employers are like, hey, if there's a perfectly good mech lying around, why should they give you that mech? Another question that came up was system requirements. Will they be posting them? No. At this point, they haven't really nailed down the full system specs, so that's why they haven't posted them. Makes sense. You don't want to get people's hopes up with certain systems and then find out later on that they've pre-ordered the game and now they have to get their money back because their system can't run it, so they're holding off before they post those. Will there be a full list of mechs posted anytime soon? Russ is happy to milk it, as there's no real need. It's Kitty's. Apparently Kitty's failed to be able to drink. So while she's coughing, yeah, there's the full list of mechs. Basically, whatever's on the Innisphere side that's prior to 3049, So any of the Star League era ones and any of the 3025, the 3039 mechs are going to be in there. Alongside their new mech, the Corsair, which we know is going to be a boss. So that's a safe assumption, unless there's some kind of sneaky extras they get in there that we don't know about. But yeah, here's hoping that an Axeman turns up, for instance, but I doubt it. If another weird question came up that seemed like a pretty easy no-brainer. Mods, if you're running a mod, do your friends have to have the same mod? Well, yeah, I think that's how it works across most games, to be perfectly honest. So it seems like an odd one, but yes, they'll all need the same mod if you're going to host a game that uses said mod. And so yeah, that pretty much wrapped that up. That was the first AMA. They ran it for an hour. I've thought I might have been able to compress this a bit more. I managed to shave about 20 minutes off the total amount of time that they took to get it all done. So yeah, any other questions about specific answers that was given, ask me in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you. If you do want to see just the unedited video going up, let me know below. I'll just record next time I'll just record the Discord, and I'll just scroll it down as each question is answered, and you can just see what other questions people typed in. You'll be able to hear it live as it was. And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you have a good week. This was quite an interesting first AMA. I thought it got some good questions, some good answers out there, and hopefully some of their other ones, which apparently are going to be themed about different elements of the game, will shed more light on what we can expect from things to modding, cooperative play, maybe the instant action, more about the AI and weapon systems, and the mercenary side of things. Yeah, it'll be good to see. Also remember that I'm not covering the North American one in their time zone this time, but I will try and get the other one. But yeah, keep an eye on some of the other YouTube channels like Kanajasi's and such, who will probably have a roundup of the first North American one. There might be some other questions that were asked there that weren't for this first one. So yeah, check those out, and have a good one all. Thanks for listening. Bye.